Hey, this is Kamori, and today we're going to be making Liliana's waist cincher. Now, the artwork for Liliana varies from card to card, so you can really use whatever pattern or design you want. I just am personally interpreting it as a waist cincher that is pointed at the top and pointed at the bottom. So I'm going to be using Simplicity 1093 for the pattern. And to make this a little bit easier and to keep the pattern pieces from getting mixed up, I'm going to do this step by step, and we're going to start with the center front pattern. So we're going to cut 2 out of velour and then 4 out of the cotton, and the cotton is going to be used for lining the waist cincher. So next what we're going to do is zigzag around the edges of all of these pieces and then get them ready for sewing. After all the edges have been zigzagged, put your center front pieces right side together and sew them together along the side for all 3 of them. Here is where we're going to deviate a little bit between the 2 bodice fronts. So take the 2 lining pieces and putting them wrong sides together, pin them together, and you're going to sew them along along the outside, leaving the top open. This is so we can put the boning in later. And then for the velour piece, go ahead and do the crisscrossing across the front of the bodice. Now, I used some black leather cording that I had left over from another project because I like the texture, but you can use ribbon, whatever you want. So the leather didn't take pins, so I had to sew it before I could film the video. So what you're going to do is just sew the pieces together at the sides so that they're open in the front. And it looks a little loose, but once it's stretched taut around the body, the pieces will fall into place a bit more. Now we're going to put the front pieces of the bodice aside and move on to the side front pieces, and we're going to cut 2 of these out of the base purple fabric for the dress. I'm using a polyester, is it shanting, I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce it, and then 4 out of the cotton that we're using for the lining. Now we're going to zigzag the edges of all of these to keep them from fraying. Take the lining pieces and put them wrong sides together, and now you're going to sew them together along the side, leaving the bottom open so we can put boning in, and we're going to do that for both of the side front pieces. Now for the outer layer, we're going to take the 2 shanting pieces and sew them onto the velour center front piece. Set aside the side front pieces, and now we're going to move on to the side back pieces. So we're going to cut 2 out of the shanting and then 4 out of the cotton for the lining, and then we're going to zigzag around the edges. After the pieces have been zigzagged, attach the shanting pieces to the rest of the corset front pieces. Then take the cotton pieces, put them wrong sides together, and now we're going to sew them together along the sides and along the bottom, leaving the top open so we can insert boning later on. Next, take the corset back piece, and we're going to cut 2 out of the shanting and 4 out of the cotton, and now we're going to zigzag around all of the edges. After the edges have been zigzagged, attach the shanting pieces to the rest of the shanting pieces, and then take the cotton pieces, put them wrong sides together, and then we're going to sew them along the sides and along the top to prepare for the boning channels. Now it's time to insert the boning into the corset pieces. So we're going to take the piece and then, using a clear ruler and a marker, draw lines on either side of where you want the boning to go. Then It's a little hard to see since the fabric is so dark to begin with, but then you're going to sew 2 lines of stitching along the lines that you drew onto the fabric. Next, cut a piece of boning the length you need, and then this is Ridgeline boning, which frays, so I used a lighter to heat seal the ends on either side to keep them from coming unraveled. Next, you're going to insert the boning into the channel that you made, and then sew along the edge to keep everything in place. Repeat these steps to add boning to all of the waist cincher pieces, then sew them together. Now we're going to take the lining and the front shell of the bodice, put them right sides together, and we're going to sew them together along the sides. Next, turn the corset piece right side out, and we're going to sew along the side to keep everything in place. Now we're going to sew the bodice outer shell and lining pieces together along the top and bottom, and don't worry about having the raw edges showing because we're going to be covering them up with bias tape later on. Now it's time to add some detailing onto Liliana's corset. Now you can go as fancy as you want or as simple as you want. I'll mention what I did and you can pick and choose how detailed you want your corset to be. So for the edges of the corset, I made my own bias tape out of the shanting so it would match and hand sewed it on, but you could use some pre-made bias tape if you want to save yourself a little bit of time. I also hand sewed some gold chain on either side of the center of the bodice and some gold chain on the sides. Once again, you can use however much detailing you want on this. I also added some beads in the center to keep the lacing in place and some gold buttons in the center. Now for the ends of the corset, I punched in some eyelets and I didn't like how they looked, so then I went through and hand sewed around them with some purple thread that matched the fabric so they're blend in a little bit more, but once again that depends on how much detail you want to add. And then the last little bit is just cutting some black ribbon to lace it up in the back, and with that, Liliana's corset's done. For more cosplay sewing tutorials, please subscribe, and thank you very much for watching. Bye!